But the nice thing is, like, at least we post the webinars like months and months in advance, and they don't really change once they're posted. So, hi George, hi John, hi Luis. So, just out of curiosity, I do a colorizing workshop like maybe once every 2 years, and I'm just curious how many had seen me do. Also, just to be clear too, I've done lots of restoration, workshops, touching up old images. But I'm really just curious, had anyone seen a colorization workshop? Part of the reason why I ask is because there's certain topics that lots of no's. Okay, good. This is great. This is answering my question. Okay. Yeah, yes, awesome. Okay. So this would be a reiterative for someone like Pia, but for most of you, no. So the reason why I'm curious is because we have so many workshops that we do, right? And so me and Rodrigo were thinking like, well, there's certain things that people request, right? To just to be clear, that this colorization workshop was actually a request from somebody who was in the previous workshop. So prior to scheduling this, someone had asked, like, yeah, we had done a restoration workshop on black and white images, and it came up, and someone requested that I do a colorization workshop, which I do. But again, like I said, we do it every like once every 1 or 2 years kind of thing. We'll have one colorization workshop in ACDC. And I'm partly just curious too, because obviously I love requests when it comes to workshops. I love for people to ask me, things that they'd like to see. And for the most part, I would say about 90% of those I do. So obviously, if you want to reach out to me over the portal, uh, let me know if you want me to cover anything in particular. Most things are pretty much coverable here. So, but the other question, or at least that I always have, is like, to what extent is this reiterative for people, or whether or not it's new information? Um, and from a topic perspective wise, I want most of the information that I present to not be reiterative. But I don't know. Some people also benefit from reiterative workshops as well, and relearning, these ideas, because often some of these tools we don't necessarily use all the time. So anyway, so I guess broadly question wise, if you were to see a workshop like this, like once a year, even if it wasn't something you were going to attend because you've already seen it, is that something that you think that there's utility in? This is a kind of yes or no. I'm just curious. Yeah, so you've seen the retouching one. Okay, good, good. Tony, yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. See, that's part of the reason why I ask. Okay. Well, this is good. Okay. All right. Awesome. Yeah. I'm just, the thing too is updates to, yeah. I mean, obviously, when everything changes with the product software, I mean, we have to sort of upend a lot of things every year because some of the inclusions to the software are so, they can really change some of these tools. Um, yeah, and if there's updated materials, yeah. So, Petrovic and Charles having the same sort of point. Yeah, nice. Okay, yeah, yeah. Alan, that's good. That's good. Well, this is really helpful. Thanks everybody for chiming in regards to that. So yeah, like I said, I'm curious about that, and part of the reason why is because both me and Rodrigo really want to produce like workshops that people will want to attend, right? And that they don't think is like going to be something that is a not a good use of their time, right? And so if people are comfortable with the occasional reiterative workshop, something like colorization, that's mostly for my own, making sure that you guys are getting content that you want to watch. So thank you. That really does help me and reaffirms my decision to do a couple workshops that I think are more important, maybe more than like once or twice a year. Yeah, that's awesome. uh, yeah, thanks, Stella. Appreciate it. Okay, why don't we get started? Here, let me just scooch in here. Okay. Um, so colorizing. So basically, first of all, I'll give you the image too. I actually scouted this image out. So last time I did this workshop, I didn't provide the link. So here, I'll just show where it is. So for those of you that are unaware, sometimes older images, like the ones that I'm working with here, I will get off of Flickr because they actually have museums that upload images for the use for basically free for commercial use because they've all entered the public domain. So this one I got, this is an image in New South Wales in Australia. It's a man painting a bridge here, and is a historical photograph from the 40s. So, and this is pretty useful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this kind of huge link here. And so I'll just shoot it through so people can click on the link and it'll take you to this photo. And that, if you would like to follow along, you can do that if you'd like, or you could just try it, at a later time. So there's a little download icon that appears on the right here. And yeah, like I said, this Commons site on Flickr, it's sort of underneath the Explore tab here. And when you open it, it'll have the ability to search through their Commons, which is a variety of different, essentially museums that upload their photographs for free for commercial use. And as a graphic designer and a photographic artist, this stuff is fun. This is really fun to work with. So I like to point it out because I think it's a really awesome resource. So that's that. If you cared, yeah. So then, and generally speaking, the photo sizes are pretty good. This is not bad, but older photographs are obviously all scanned. Oops, that's because I didn't link it to you. I linked it to the panelists, which of course is just me. So, okay, thanks for that. So you should be able to see it now. Can you see it? Okay, awesome. Yeah, moving on. Okay, so we have this image here, and black and white images, or I guess grayscale images, right? Have their own color mode that they're in, which doesn't incorporate color. So a true color image would be something. Oh, nice. Yeah. So Helen's already uses Flickr as well. Yeah, I really like it. It's an awesome tool. At least the common section of it is. Lots of people upload photos on Flickr and use it to share images and stuff for different reasons, which I'm sure it's really useful. But I've always really appreciated this common section. So yeah, this is a grayscale image. And we know it's a grayscale image, sort of a hint when we open it in edit mode, is that if we look at our color picker, we're going to see right away that our image is depicted in grayscale. So if I click on this foreground color here, if I was to click on any of this color wheel, you'll see right away that it doesn't actually change the color of the foreground color picker. It just basically establishes the correct level of brightness in correspondence to the hue. So if we were to pick a much darker color, like dark blue, for example, you'll see that the sort of the brightness matches that of a grayscale color selection. So this, of course, indicates to us that this image is black and white. Even in this bottom right hand corner here, sort of where it's depicted right here, you can see that it says displayed in RGB, but just based on this interaction with this color picker, we can see that it's not. So what we need to do is we need to do a very short, quick conversion process to essentially change it to a true color image. And so a true color image will essentially not replace the grayscale values in the image. It's not going to change the pixels of our image, but it's going to change the workspace that we engage with, and that will enable us to work with color. If I was to try to colorize this image right now, right? If I go to try to, brush on a color, you can see that it corresponds to the grayscale that we see. So that's not going to work for us, obviously. So we need to change it. So I'll show you how to do that. So just to give you an idea where we're going with this workshop, I think this is what we're going to showcase. I'll try to do as much of this I can in this workshop here. Just showcasing this. So, colorizing an image, obviously manual, is very time, it's a very, takes time, right? It's not an automated process. So you have to go through and you have to make these sort of choices yourself, So this is just kind of an idea of where we're going. We'll be showcasing how to colorize these various parts of our image here. And then importantly too, we'll also illustrate how to just make a quick couple changes. Might adjust the vibrance on our image and then adjust some of the curves. But this gives you a good idea where we're going. And this is pretty non-complicated. It's time consuming, but it's non-complicated. So we'll show how to do that. So when we take our grayscale image here, and we've established basically by opening it up in edit mode that that this is a grayscale image, and basically I'll try to be a bit slower, Nude, but just keep in mind, we have the highlighter as well here, so we need to convert this to a true color image here. But I'm just going to point something out too right away, is that when I open up this image here, under the properties panel on the right hand side in manage mode, under file, we can see that this bit depth is 8-bit grayscale. So this is the thing that we're going to need to change to true color in order to work with our image properly. So what we need to do is we need to open up our image in view mode. And so view mode is where we can change the color profile. So what we have here is we have our grayscale image. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to tools, I believe. Let me just double check. And then it's modify. Yeah. So we'll go to tools and modify. And within tools and modify, you can see that there's this change color depth. And so this changes the essentially the pixel density in our image. So we have black and white, which would change it to exactly what you think. It would change your image to a sort of black and white image. So it's two-toned to 16 grays. So that contains 16 different types of gray. And then 256 gray or panchromatic gray right here, which is any value ranging from 0 to 255. And so what that does is it takes a RGB image and it converts it to grayscale. So a corresponding brightness for every color value. So for the 255 hues in the image with their corresponding brightness and saturation, it just converts that to a gray basically in between that. And so that's what we have here represented. But when we go to edit this image and convert it to a color image, we need to move that from the grays to true color. This is the only process that's going to work for colorizing black and white images or grayscale images. So what we'll do is we will click on true color, and then what it's going to prompt us to do is it'll prompt us to save essentially a new version of our image. So we'll just save it. I'm going to save it as true color image. And I'm just going to place it in the same folder that it was in. And if I navigate back to manage mode, you can see that that true color image is there now. And notably, 24-bit color has been replaced in the bit depth here from our grayscale that we had previously. So if we're comparing the two, I'll just quickly open up the grayscale. The grayscale, as I said previously, nice image. However, we can't actually engage with the foreground color picker because it's all in grayscale, versus our new true color image, which now has a sort of a 24-bit color replaced in there. So we can actually utilize these colors in the process of colorizing our image or creating new layers. And this is a key feature. I do not see modify on tools. Is this in view mode, Rodney? Also, just for future reference, anyone wants to ask a question, just fire it in the Q&A. It's a bit easier to follow. Do not see modify on tools. So I'm going to just showcase where that is once more. So what you want to do is you want to take your grayscale image into view mode, not in manage mode or edit mode, but view mode. And then under tools, modify is underneath slideshow. And I guess the most important element of that is making sure you're in the right mode. So move from edit mode to view mode, and then modify, change color depth, and true color. And that's where that is. No problem. Yeah, that's one of the ones that I would like them to move that function into manage mode, just so people don't have to navigate between modes to get it, but they have not yet. So we have our image here. So how colorizing works, or at least I think the way that I like to do this, is to basically to add a blank layer. So when you add a blank layer, that layer can be filled with content. And then what we can do is we can mask that content accordingly. So when we mask that, we're basically going to be telling or isolating particular parts of our image that we want that color to appear and to not appear. And so masking is obviously a really important element in any sort of photographic art or creative art process in ACDSee. So whenever we're working with layers and multiple images, right, we're making photographic art. And so that is going to require us to do masking. Masking is a huge component of that. Pretty big deal in all graphic design and photographic art fields. Maybe not necessarily as important in photographic editing, with the exception of a couple things that you would do here and there. But when it comes to photographic art, it's a pretty vital feature. So what I'll do is I'll take my true color image here, our base, and I'm going to add a blank layer. And what we'll do is we'll add this blank layer, we'll fill it with a content, a color, and then we'll begin the process of sort of colorizing different parts of this man's clothing. I'll probably start with the hat, and then we'll go to the shirt and then the pants, and we'll talk about that process as we go. So I have my blank layer here. Let's actually name these layers so that we're not confusing them. We'll start with the hat. So I'm going to right click my layer 1 here, and I will click rename layer, and I will literally name it hat layer. And that will leave me with this layer right here, and then we can go through the process of filling it. So the way I like to do this is because colorizing, so real professionals who do colorizing for museums and things like that have to do extensive research in regards to articles of clothing and brick types and things like that. We're not going to be doing that. I don't have the the time, capacities, or education in regards to that. So what we'll do is we're just going to make decisions based on what we think would be attractive or look good in this image. So what we'll do is we'll take this layer here, and then I'm going to navigate to my foreground color picker, which is up at the top here. And then we'll choose a corresponding color that we would like to add to the space. And let's change the color from our previous image. Let's go sort of like a burgundy for the hat. So we can choose a color using the standard foreground color picker, or what we can do is we can open up the custom panel and we can choose from a this sort of panel here. And I think this is an incredibly useful thing to understand. So I might take a moment to do that. So in ACDSee and in many other sort of photo editing softwares, or even if you're looking online for color information, there's RGB, which is a sort of a combination or values associated with sort of HSB, so hue, saturation, and brightness. And so what we do when we interact with this foreground color picker here within this custom panel here, we're interacting with and receiving 3 forms of information. So if we pick a color, right, as we have in the right-hand corner here, this sort of fuchsia color, we can see the RGB values, which are located right here. Can everybody see those 3 right there? So we're given an R value. Thanks, Stella. I appreciate that. Antonio, we're given a green value and a blue value. So these values together create whatever you're seeing. Okay. So your red, in this case, or the fuchsia that we see here, is the value R 255. So, and what that means, right, is because in this case, 24-bit color goes from 0 to 256, or I believe that's 8-bit color. But either way, it gets it goes from 0 to 256. So this 255 value represents the highest possible value, right? Not including 0. This is the highest possible value of any in this red category. The value of 0 for green in this case is the lowest possible value, and a moderate value of 72, sort of on the lower end of moderate here. And so these combinations together equal fuchsia, you know? So then underneath you have a hex code. So a hex code is a code that contains actually this information, this HSB and RGB values. But this is like a single referenceable color code that you can look up, right, to sort of display this image. I wonder if I can show this really quickly here. If I just go and look up hex code here. So I just literally looked up this color value, okay? And you can see that when I use this reference code, hex code FF0048, what I'll receive is a color. Then that color is the same one that you're seeing on the screen here, right? So this is a hugely important tool. And this is often used for graphic designers to sort of isolate colors that they want in particular sort of compositions that they're working on. But you can use it for the same reason, right? You can find colors online you like, right? You can find color softwares or color websites where you can choose a variety of different colors, and they'll output a hex code for you. In this case, the hashtag FF or barcode FF0048. And as you can see here, these values, which it displays here, references the same ones that we see on our screen here with the 255,072. And the value of that, or the importance of that, is that these colors are sort of unanimous, right? Within a, I guess, an 8-bit structure. Then I think the most important thing to understand is the HSB. And so HSB is a really simple way of sort of, oh yeah, sure, Della, I can explain that. Give me 2 seconds to finish my explanation on HSB, and then I'll explain CMYK to you. So what we see here is a hue slider, okay? So the hue slider references a true hue, okay? And what a true hue is it's an image that has a maximum brightness. So when you scroll through these hues, it starts up at the top here at red and goes all the way down, and you start to see green. And so you go through this spectrum of color, okay? The spectrum of color that the eye sees. Then what you receive is you receive a value. So when we're scrolling through on this hue value, you'll notice that all of these, right? At least in this case, as I go through, have a value associated with them, a hue value. So that hue value, that number, I guess in this case, is whatever the color is. So if the color of this sort of orangey red, right, starts at 0, I scroll up to this yellow here, it's the 38. You scroll to the blue here, it's 165, with the topmost more purple red being 255. So this number from 0 to 255, so 256 digits total, just refers to a maximum brightness color. Okay, so that's all that is. It's just, in this case, 1 was the, or 0 in this case is that red. 112 is this nice cyan kind of color, and 255 is this fuchsia E-red. So then you have these other two sliders. So this gives us information. This gives us a hue. Okay, so that first part gives us a hue. But as you can see here, there's 2 other metrics. There's saturation, and then there's brightness. And so if I take this guy right here, this little crosshair, and I navigate horizontally, you can see as I navigate horizontally that the saturation value decreases. So in this case, a 0 saturation image, okay, is in this this white spectrum of the image here, or the white spectrum here. And as I increase the saturation, right, the number is going to increase with the maximum value of 255 being present. So desaturated images are like, more gray looking in essence, right? And then as you increase the color, they start to become, more vibrant, right? And with that maximum vibrancy representing a true hue. So that's the horizontal slider. And then finally is the vertical slider. And so the vertical slider is literally brightness. Okay. So with the bottom value being 0, okay, so 0 value is black. And the top value being, in this case, or I guess it would represent, a maximum color or value, right? White. But in combination with the saturation, we receive our final color value. So whatever that is a combination of the hue you've selected, okay, the saturation, the degree to which your color is saturated, and then the degree to which your color is bright, with black being the least bright and white being the most bright. And so HSB values, if I just pick one that's right in the center here, sort of represents a combination of these three things that result in a RGB value and an hex code value. Does this make sense to people so far? These three combinations, so hue, saturation, and brightness, give us an RGB value, right? And they give us a hex code value. And so this is a really useful thing to understand. It's really just three avenues of understanding. You're choosing a true color. So what is your true color that you want to work with based on the spectrum of light that the human eye can see? Then the degree of vibrancy based on that color, based on the horizontal slider, and the degree to which the color is either bright or dark. And that gives you your color value. Okay, so Della asked difference between RGB and CMYK, please. So I'm uniquely positioned to answer this question because I am, for many years, I worked with a print studio. And in a print studio, we deal with CMYK and RGB, right? They are two color, I guess, modalities or modes, and they're used in completely different contexts. So RGB is a way of representing color, as we've described, for screens, right? For the human eye, for LCD screens. And so RGB represents red, green, and blue. And so when we combine those red, green, and blue, in the same way that the human eye would experience light when refracted from a prism, right? All screens are basically is a source of light. So it's capable of producing those values. So what we see is RGB. However, the human eye, or rather, when it as soon as we move to a different medium, right? Certain rules needs to change. So Della, why we use CMYK is CMYK is a way of mixing color, actual inks, right? To produce values that mimic or resemble our RGB values that we see through the human eye. So what CMYK literally refers to is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And so when you mix those values together, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, you can produce a variety of RGB values through the mixing of that. So this is why when you use your DeskJet printer at home and you print, the actual cartridges that you're using are CMYK. So when I print with a printer, you're reproducing values that you see on a screen using those inks instead. Which would you use when printing at home? Well, you don't have a choice. It's CMYK. You will always be printing in CMYK. There's only two printing colors. So CMYK is the standard for any sort of industry printing, with the exception of offset printing, which would be something that you'd see for newspapers and really high turnover, so like tons and tons of final product, which is offset printing uses a type of printing called spot, which spot is literally a pre-mixed color. And then they just produce one color and they'll layer colors over and over and over it in the same way that screen printing works. So there's really only two printing, which is CMYK and then the spot. No, I understand what you're saying. It's just that the ink that you're going to be utilizing is CMYK, or in this case spot. The process to convert those values using CMYK may change, right? So if you in the software are setting up your values in CMYK, it will essentially change or reduce the amount of conversion process necessary versus working in RGB, which will change that. I will show you. Okay. So how you get to the foreground picker is you just select the little two boxes here, and that brings up the foreground picker here. Anyway, so color theory aside, let's actually get to the process of colorizing this hat. So I'm going to use the custom panel here to choose a color. I think I'm going to choose like a burgundy. Yeah, like that color. Not too dark, because we're going to have to blend all these colors anyway. But we'll give it a go. So I've chose a burgundy color for the hat. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a fill bucket tool. And when I use this fill bucket tool, I can literally fill the layer. And you can see that my layer here, this blank layer, I used the fill bucket tool to fill the entire layer with the corresponding burgundy color that I've chosen. So that's obviously useful from the standpoint of this layer here, but I want to verify that this burgundy color that I've chosen will work for the hat that I'm using here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the blend mode on the layer to reference the image beneath it. And this is going to essentially change the pixels in our image to make them transparent to a certain degree. And that will enable me to choose, I think, a blend mode that applies. So if I change my blend mode to multiply, you can see that it essentially makes the image transparent. The blend is applied to the lighter parts of our image, with the darker parts of our image sort of being maintained. I just want to check a couple different methods here to see if there's a blend mode that I like more. I think we might try it soft light and hard light. Hard light might be a bit aggressive. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try soft light here to blend this hat layer in with the true color image beneath it. Now you're probably thinking, okay, Adam, this is great, but you've applied this this hat layer, this sort of this red color to our whole image. And so that's where we introduce masking. Okay, so this is where we have to start to mask our image here. So to mask an image, or mask in this case a blank layer, which we've filled with a color, we'll take our hat layer here, the burgundy that we've selected, and I'm just going to navigate down to the add a layer mask. And what this will do is it will add a binary mask, so a white-black mask to our currently selected layer, which in this case is this red layer, burgundy layer. And when I do that, you can see that the mask appears, and the mask is presented in white. And white, again, what it means is it is turned on, okay? So this burgundy layer is turned on with the mask. And what turned on means is it's visible to the eye. It's sort of being presented currently. Yes, you can, but I'll explain why what I'm doing is much better than that. Just give me a second. So what I can do here is I can click on the mask itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert it. Okay. And I'm going to invert this because I would like to turn this mask off on everywhere but the hat that I'm going to be brushing on. Okay. So when I invert this, the mask itself will be filled with black. Okay. So what that's going to look like is it's going to turn that sort of part of my image off. So this masking here has created this binary relationship where white turns it on and black turns it off. So white visually presents it to us and black hides it from view. And so this gives us the ability to, what masking truly means is be selective about where this color is going to be shown, right? So how we make this hat appear, or just the hat in itself appear, is we can click on the brush tool here. And what I'm going to do is when I click on the brush tool, I'm going to zoom in on the hat itself, okay? And I'm going to basically fill my mask layer. I want to be very clear. I'm working on my mask, not the color burgundy. So I've selected my mask. I've got my brush selected here. And then I'm going to turn my brush on. So it's going to be white here. And when I brush on with my my brush here, you can see that that color appears and it's referenceable in the mask. So I've now got this little white dot on the mask here, and that dot represents the part of this hat color that I've turned on. So this is really, really important. So this is how what we're going to do is this is how we're going to basically paint on the different colors for the articles of clothing and for the skin tones in our image here. So we're going to be reproducing this process a couple times here. So if you didn't catch most of this, it's okay. We're going to do it again. But I'm just going to take this moment now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this hat as an example. Maybe I'll just scrub along here. There we go. That's better. And then I'm probably going to reduce the feathering here because I want it to be a little bit crisper, tighter to the edge here. So I'm just going to go along and I'm actually going to fill this layer with this burgundy color by utilizing the mask. Now, if I ever screw up and I catch a little bit that I don't want here, I can just use the right click button and that will do the opposite color, which in this case is black, which turns that off from view. So this is a good way to work is to just quickly go through and right click to turn it on. In this case, to turn it on is to apply white and right click at any point if I have done it, right? And I want to erase that portion, which is applying a black to the mask, which then hides it from view. So I'm going to go through and I'm just going to cover this hat here. And if there's any pixels that I don't want, I just go through and I highlight them and I erase them by right clicking. Now, so Della said, could you select only the hat clip and color that? So you can just go through and color your layer, okay? You can add a blank layer just like this. And I can go through and I could color in an object. So let's just color in this paintbrush, for example, right? So I'm going to take this blank layer. I'm just going to select a color here. I'll select a blue. And I can apply that here to my my brush here, okay? And then I can apply a blend mode to this blue brush here. So there's my change. There's overlay a blue brush. But I have a problem now. And the problem is, what happens if I want to change this color, right? Or if I want to go through and erase it or repair it in some way. So I can't just go in and go, oh, I actually want to try a different color. I want to change this to green because it would produce this situation where I have one color right here, and then I'm filling the layer with a different color. So why working with masks is so awesome is because the mask is preserved even though the color may change. So coming back to our hat, right? If I've got my hat layer selected and now I want to change the color, right? Not the mask, but the color. If I click on the mask, or sorry, if I click on the layer itself to change it to this green, right? Then the mask is preserved, but the color changes. So I can go through and I can even check colors I want, you know, versus the color that I'd select to begin with. I can choose something that I want to change, you know. So this gives me the ability to check and verify colors while preserving the mask that I've created. And this is a way better way to do this than to just draw on a part of my image. It saves me so much time because it, pardon me, a little hoarse voice right now, but it enables me to change it. And it gives me a degree of control over the image, and it makes it non-destructive. Excuse me, I'm just gonna get some water. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, let's answer a couple questions here. Yeah, so Dean mentioned, and this is correct. So when I'm using this color picker, right? And I'm working off of my mask, right? What I'm not doing is I'm applying the burgundy when I right click, and I'm erasing it when I'm applying it when I left click, and I'm erasing it when I right click. This sort of corresponds to the foreground colors here. Because in this case, the foreground color here is turned on, and the background color or the right click is turned off, or in this case, like erase that color, right? So that kind of works through the hat at least. So what we'll do is we'll take another component of our image here. We'll take probably the sort of overalls here, and then we'll do that as well, and we'll sort of talk about through that process just to showcase this again. Ray said, I noticed noise on your image. Would you normally get rid of noise before colorizing the image? Yes. Yeah. I mean, just beyond the scope of this workshop, but 100%. I would do that before I colorize my image, Ray. Good eye. Okay. New layer. So the hat is complete. I like my hat. I can change the color whenever I want. I can change the blend mode whenever I want if I wanted to darken it or whatever, right? So I'm happy with that. Now I want to add a new layer. So I'm going to do the jumper, right? Or this overalls. So I'm going to add a blank layer. I'll rename the layer once again just to aid me in this process. I'll call it overalls. I mean, it's like a jumpsuit, but whatever. And then once I have that, I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to navigate to my color picker, just like I did previously. And I'm just going to choose a starting color, something to work with. Okay. Let's choose, I don't know, something maybe like I want to do something completely different from the one I did previously. So let's do like an orange, do like a burnt orange. So I've chosen a burnt orange here. I'm going to take my fill tool, and while I have my layer selected, I'm just going to fill the whole layer. And so once again, that fills my whole layer. As you can see here, that's represented with orange. And sort of the topmost layer is always the one that's presented to us. So because overalls are on the top, that's what we're seeing. Now what we'll do is we'll select a blend mode again to blend it. And I'll choose soft light because I've seen success with this. So there's my soft light application. Obviously, we're not going to see here, we'll just hide the hat for now. But you can see what that looks like over the overalls there. We can change this too. We can maybe, if we really want something a bit brighter, we can go with the color blend mode. Or if I want something way darker, I can go with the multiply blend mode. Let's try play around. I think I might go with color, and we'll change it if I don't like it. Yeah, we'll try that for now. So once I have my sort of blend mode selected, and again, this can be changed whenever, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a mask again. So I'll click on this little icon right down here underneath the adjustment layers panel, and I'll click on add layer mask. And by default, the mask will be turned on, which we'll want to turn off. We're going to want to make this black. So the way that we can do that, at least the way we can when we start working with the mask, is we can click on the invert button, and that will change it to the off or the binary representation. Or if you're ever in a position where you've already got some sort of pre-existing mask brushed out, you can always right click and just set it as black or set it as white. So that'll sort of change between the two. This will, of course, when you set it as black, it's going to remove, in this case, any brushes you've made on or any sort of changes, selections you've made, but we can work with that. So then what we'll do, same thing, we'll zoom in our subject here. I'm going to select the mask. Very important that I'm selecting the mask right now. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush, okay, my brush that I've selected here. I'm going to make sure that my brush is set to white and black. And I can always set it to white and black by clicking on the Reset Colors button to the right of the color picker itself. And with that selected, what I can do is I can go in and I can start to brush on the color of the jumper here. And if I ever want to get into tighter spaces, I can always just use my scroll wheel on my mouse, or I can go up to the nib width setting and change the width or the feathering on my image here. And then all I'm going to do, as always, is I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to use the right click to to turn it off if I want, and the left click to add the color in the space. Doc asked reset colors. What do you mean? Can you clarify your point on resetting the colors? Yeah, I don't understand what you mean. Do you mean if I want to change the orange, or if I mean I can just always hide the layer and it removes the color, right? Because it's just a layer in this case. I'm not actually changing the original in this case. Does that answer your question? Oh, yes. So if you have in your color picker, you've got some sort of color other than white selected, note that there's this little tiny icon that's very quite hard to see. But what that will do is it'll reset to white and black. So it's a quick way to just sort of set your foreground and background colors. And then from there, you can swap them. So you can click on this little swap colors icon right above the reset colors icon, and that will oscillate the colors on the foreground and background. Yeah, that's a good question. Sorry, didn't understand what you meant. So I'll just go through. I'm going to keep painting this on. Mask colors. Yeah, so when I have my color here, Petrovic, so I have a blank layer filled with orange, right? But the blank layer on itself, on its own, is just going to appear over top of my whole image. So what I've done is I've created a blend mode over top of that image. So the blend mode of a color blending in this case, as you can see. And then I've added a mask. And this mask allows me to selectively go through and add color where I want to on my image. This color orange, right, is over top of my image, right? And it's only through the process of masking that I allow this color to shine through, because it's currently set to a sort of a black mask. So when I brush through with white, what it does, pardon me, is it adds it to view. So it sort of presents that color to me, rather than hiding it from view, which is sort of the purpose of a black mask. Just to sort of hide the whatever's masked, versus white, which is to show what is presented in the mask. So I'm just navigating around. I'm just filling this subject with literally just using the brush tool to just go through and add color on my image. Okay. Just sort of following the contours of where this article of clothing is. I'll be done fairly soon here, but I'm just going to take some time to make sure that it looks good. Wherever I need to, I can decrease the size of my nib by using the scroll wheel. I can change the feathering if I want it to be a more gradiated a change. And then if I ever cover an area that I, accidentally cover too much, I can go through and I can just tighten those up by right clicking, which removes it from view. Hides that part of the layer, or the mask rather. Now this might be a bit garish in color, so we might take a moment to change the color afterwards or change the blend mode. These are all things we can do because using the masking method is totally non-destructive. So let's see how we're doing. Yeah, we're just about done here. And then we can change the opacity as well. So if we actually do like the color and we do like the blend mode, but we just want it to be a bit more faded looking, we can always just reduce the opacity as well. And so this is a pretty surefire method to go through and add color to your images non-destructively. And if we were to save this file as an ACDSee file, which enables me to work on this file non-destructively, I can come through later and then I can change these values or change the colors if I want. So it enables me to go through and work non-destructively on this image. Difference between opacity and fill. Yeah, sure. Give me 2 seconds to finish this. I don't use a tablet. I use a mouse. I don't know. That's purely a preference question. If you're comfortable with tablets, I think a pretty modern way of working, in photo editing softwares, just because it gives you like a degree of control based on probably a more common method of working, which is to sort of illustrate by hand with a pen. But I've always used a mouse. I'm pretty fast with one now, and I'm kind of used to it. So I don't know. It's really up to you. Oh, and then I think just a bit down here. Yeah, I find them really hard to use as well. Okay, so that's our guy right there. It's all filled in. So let's show the difference between fill and opacity, I suppose. Okay, so I'll just add another blank layer and quickly illustrate this for Della here. So I've got a blank layer. I'm just going to fill it with red. So this is what we call fill. Okay, so this is just a filled layer has 100% opacity, which means that all of the pixels in the image are presented to you. Okay, so 100% opacity is essentially all of the pixels, 100% of the pixels being fully represented. Okay. Zero opacity would be, wow, I've got this red layer, but I can't see it at all because now the pixels, 0% of the pixels are being displayed to me, right? So somewhere in the middle, right, would look like this, as 50%. So 50% of the pixels in this fill layer here are being presented to me now. So it appears as partially red, no? So 50% of my image is red. 50% of my image is also displayed, in this case, as containing no pixel information. And so these values change. So if I was to lower that value to 25, now a quarter of the pixels in my image are red, right? If I was to change it to 75%, 3/4 of the pixels in my image are now red. I'm not sure where you're seeing that, Della. Can you showcase where you, or can you tell me what you mean? Anyway, I'm going to keep, while you describe that, I'm going to keep working on this. So we have our character here. He has a jumpsuit, it's pretty bright. So we can do a couple things. Like I mentioned previously, I can go in and I can change the color of these overalls entirely. So I could take the fill tool here, the foreground color picker. I could choose a completely different color, like for example, this sort of pink color here. I could fill it and that would change the color of my jumpsuit, right? I'll just undo that. The next thing I can do is I can change the blend mode, and the blend mode is going to keep the color, okay, but it's going to change the way that color is blended with the images that appear beneath it. Pardon me. So if I want to go to a hard light, you can see that has kind of a glossy. We lose a lot of or we gain a lot of the color in the shadows, which is not very realistic. Versus like something like vivid light, which is super bright, but beautiful workings in the shadows there, versus something like multiply, which is too dark and we lose a lot of the color in our image here. I actually really liked the vivid light, but it might be something where you'd reduce the opacity on the vivid light because you love the way that it interacts with the shadows there, right? But overall, the image is just has too much saturation because it's like electric yellow, looks like he's he's one of those biohazard guys. So I could reduce the overall opacity on my overalls, and that would sort of reduce the effect of the vivid light blend that you see above there. Other things. So I'm not going to spend much more time showcasing this again because we've sort of illustrated it twice here. But the other things we can do is once I'm done, okay, so I've filled in the colors of all the areas that I like, then I can go in and I can add maybe say a curves adjustment to the top. And so a curves adjustment over top would then apply and it would give it a nice appearance overall, just to sort of keep that homogenize the experience of the colors. The other thing we can do, right? I can go in and I can add a vibrance adjustment. So if there's anything over top of all these images that I wanted to change, right? I can go in and I could maybe increase the saturation or decrease it further. Finally, the other thing we can do, right, is we can always add a photo effect. And a photo effect might add a degree of separation from the colors we've added and a degree of homogenize the image and add a bit of normalcy there. So if I added a photo effect and I wanted something that was maybe like, I don't know, sepia or something like that. out of sepia. So now it gives it a little bit of a sepia tone, which again, combined with the colors we've added, it gives it a bit of it sort of homogenizes these colors that we've added and adds a little bit of a realism over top of it. It sort of, this is a decision that we've made to sort of blends these things together, that incorporates them together. So that kind of covers everything that I wanted to talk about today. Just to reiterate what we talked about, it's really simple. It's just a matter of changing modifying the color mode to true color in your grayscale images. You might not need to do this in all your grayscale images, but if you are noticing an issue where you can't add color to your image, just go in and quickly change to true color. Secondly, go in and add blank layers to your image, fill them with a color, and then use the masking tool to black them out, or to turn those masks off, and then just selectively brush them on. And this gives you the ability to losslessly change the color in the future and also maintain the mask itself. The only thing I would note is, obviously, when you go to save these images, make sure you save them as an ACDSee file. And that's going to enable you to go in and change those in the future if you want to work on your image non-destructively. And then the last thing I mentioned is just, photo effects, vibrance, curves, those sort of things to sort of homogenize your image and make it feel situated. Also, we talked a little bit about color theory, very, very small sort of thing on color theory today, but just talking about HSB, RGB, hex codes, that sort of thing. So, and maybe the difference between CMYK printing and trying to print with RGB color values. Yeah. Thank you for the questions, by the way, Della, and I appreciate your comment. Can't thank you enough for these fantastic words. Awesome. The replay will be uploaded. Well, I'm going to edit the video right now. So once this workshop's over, I'll edit the video. And I anticipate trying to get that video up by the end of day today. At latest, I will have the video up to you for Monday. Where did you pick the photo effects, please? Yeah, sure. So photo effects are added, this little icon down in the bottom left-hand corner. And when you click on photo effect, it'll bring up this little menu here, right? So it's where the same thing as when you look at the vibrance here, menu pops up. Same thing for photo effect. And then you just choose, they're preset, they're preset in the in the software. And they just add essentially like a lookup table over top of the image. Speaking of which, my next workshop is on lookup tables. You should definitely participate. That's super cool. Lookup tables give you the ability to basically create your own versions of these, which are like single pass effects that you add over top of your image. So join up on that if you want to learn more about those. Thank you so much for the questions. By the way, appreciate that, Della. That's very kind of you. Okay, let's answer some questions here. Okay, Doc, thank you so much. I'm so glad. George, thank you. You're so welcome. Ray, is that next week? No, that would be very close to the end of April. So I think it's on the 26th. It's just in the community portal. Just go to workshops. It's coming up though. Thank you. I apologize. I don't know how to say your name, but the Cyrillic name. Thank you so much. Odvin, do you have a tip for color for skin? Yeah, I do actually. Less is more for skin. So I'll show you. Actually, this is a great question. So first of all skin colors are essentially some variation of orange. Even if you have really dark or really light skin, it's all orange. So keep that in mind. And what I mean by that is, if you were to take a color picker and put it over somebody who has like a really, really dark skin tone, and put over somebody who has a really pale skin tone, and if you were to just select the color, you'll see that color will always come up as some version of orange. So when we're working with skin tone, keep that in mind. So you're going to want to work within this spectrum, right? And like I said, less is more. So depending on the darkness, obviously, of the person's skin, you'll want to increase or decrease the brightness, but it'll always be in some variation of this, right? So I would choose a light color, really emphasizing opacity on this one. I would not overthink this. You would want to play around with opacity a little bit, and then you would just go through the process of, here, I'll just quickly fill this, add a black mask, and we'll white it out here. Oops. Oh, that's right. Yeah. I want to change the blend mode here. Soft light. And what I would do here is I would just decrease opacity until I find a level that I'm comfortable with. You can change the blend mode. You know, that's way too grayscale. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I definitely click keep with soft light probably. And then if I wanted to change that, again, if I wanted to play around with that value, I could go back to this and then just sort of, if I wanted something a bit pinker, right, I would just move it a bit further down. And now I have a pinker value, you know? Or if I wanted something that was quite a bit darker, if I wanted somebody's darker skin, I would go with a little bit more of a moderate saturation charcoaly tone to it. And then I would play around with opacity again, right? Increasing or decreasing opacity. That would be my recommendation. The other thing you can do, right? Keep this in mind, is you can always look at an image of a person, you know, similar skin tone kind of thing, and just literally color pick that color on that image. So I'll just quickly save this. True color image, finish, recolored. What you can do is you can literally go to another image, say, okay, I want somebody who's, I don't know, a European ethnicity kind of thing, maybe Northern European ethnicity, and find somebody who has that kind of skin tone to it. Let's see, I have people folder. Yeah, somebody like, let's see here. Maybe somebody who's similar age if you can, just because it's going to change the sort of skin tone as well. Let's see if I can find a guy here. Let's see. Yeah, somebody like this, for example. Okay, so I'll take this guy here and I'll literally, what I can do here is I can go in and I could snag that color exactly. So what I would do is I'd take this color, take that hex code, exactly that hex code, and then I would move over to my other image and I would use that as a reference, right? So you can reference other images. By the way, if you're really intent on working with color, you can use different colors based on where it appears in the image in terms of if it's on a part of your skin that's more has more shadow or more access to light. These are all things you can copy, right? Where did my colorizing image go? So I can go through, go back into my image that I had here. I have my skin layer here. I can go, okay, I like that, but I want to change the color. So I'll go my foreground picker, and now I'll place my color in there, the one that I just had, and I'll put it there. And that's sort of a closer to the skin tone that I was working with there. And then again, I would play around with the blend mode and the opacity in correspondence with the new color that I've chosen. Great question. Mel, thank you so much. Richard, thank you. Thank you, Laurent. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Luis. Thank you, Merrick. Thanks, Hank. Thank you, Key. Thank you, Ray. Any chance for another workshop on keywords? Yeah, we can do a workshop on keywords. Let me write that down. 100%. Absolutely, I can. Thanks. Keyword workshop. Anything in particular you want to talk about in keywords, Anne? Let me know. Sonia, thank you so much. John, glad I watched before. Tim to the first photo. Yeah, no problem. Alan, layers and masks. Never been so clear in my mind. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm so glad, Alan. That's awesome. Doc, is there a starting point for skin color? Obviously determined by race. Yeah, I would just use another photo, you know, based on somebody from the region of that part of the world that person's from. Dan, thank you. Not, thank you so much. Stellar work info. So you're so much, Ron. Thank you. Antonio, thank you. Joel, thank you. Odvin, thank you. Pia, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dean. Thanks, Alex. Very clear. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Royce. Thanks, James. Thank you, Owen. Thank you, John. Thank you, Nancy. Just how to create them, categories. So, Anne, how to create keywords and categories. Okay, so like an introductory workshop on keywords and categories? How to? Sure, absolutely. I'll schedule it right now. Schedule it for me. Sounds good. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Jack. Um, thank you, Della. Thank you, Petrovic. Yeah. Tony, thank you, Adam. Looks like I'm gonna have to be more conversant with edit to colorize some old pics I've just scanned. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, you can rewatch this workshop if you have any sort of curiosities in regards to it. hopefully that was helpful, Tony. I mean, it sounds like you're maybe use a develop mode than you use edit mode, and yeah, that's okay. This is sort of like a good introductory workshop to working with edit mode. Awesome. I might thank you, Randy. Probably going to be done for today, guys. Where do we find it on Monday? YouTube. So we upload all of our workshops to YouTube. So if you go to ACDSee Photo Studio, that guy, I would subscribe if you haven't already. Please subscribe, Nude. Yeah, and then so there's a little bell icon, and you can sort of add us to your subscribed either that or just bookmark it. If you don't have a YouTube or Gmail account or something like that, that's fine. Just bookmark it, and this is where we upload all of our workshops. So we have playlists on here. So we have playlists for workshops, for example. But it'll just appear as the most recent video if it's within the last 2 weeks of us doing the workshop. Does that answer your question, Nude?